Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This video is about tumors of the esophagus. Following are the references for this video. At the end of this video, the third year MBBS student should be able to explain the etiology of preneoplastic and neoplastic conditions of the esophagus and describe the morphology and pathogenesis of preneoplastic and neoplastic conditions of the esophagus. During the next couple of the minutes, we will be looking for the answer to this case scenario in which a 56-year-old man present to the clinic with decreased ability to swallow solid foods, even with extensive chewing, and after taking complete history, you learn that he has been avoiding large meals and has lost nearly 30 pounds over last 6 months. He has smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day for about 20 years and he has a history of heavy alcohol use as well. He complains of pain in his throat when swallowing and has been coughing up the small amounts of blood on occasion. The esophagus develops from the cranial portion of the foregut and recognizable by the 3rd week of the gestation. It is a hollow, distendable muscular tube that extends from the epiglottis and the pharynx to the gastroesophageal junction. The gastroesophageal junction with the lower esophageal sphincter, physiological function of this is to maintain the muscle tone. The primary function of the esophagus is to deliver ingested solid food and fluids to the stomach. The length of the adult esophagus is between 23 to 25 centimeter, while for endoscopy it is considered from the incisor teeth, and from the incisor teeth to the gastroesophageal junction the length is 38 to 43 centimeters and the average is about 40 centimeter. The normal color of the mucosa is white to tan. The lymphatic drainage of the esophagus, the upper 1/3 drains into the cervical lymph node, the middle third into the mediastinum, and the lower third into celiac and the gastric lymph node. This understanding of the lymphatic drainage is important as the cancer of this esophagus metastasized through the lymph nodes. So the group of the lymph nodes or lymphatics that is affected is dependent on the site of the lymph node that is involved. The venous drainage is also important to understand because the varices almost invariably develop, the esophageal varices almost invariably develops in the lower third of the esophagus, because the lower third drain into the portal vein via gastric vein, the middle third drains into the azygous system, and while the upper third into the superior vena cava. There is presence of striated and smooth muscle in the upper portion of the esophagus, while the lower portion contains smooth muscle only. The esophagus is fixed superiorly at the cricopharyngeal and inferior pharyngeal constrictor muscle. They together form the upper esophageal sphincter. The esophagus courses inferiorly through the posterior mediastinum, behind the trachea and heart, and exits the thorax through the diaphragm. There is another sphincter present that is composed of only the smooth muscle and the tonic muscular contraction, and at its lower end creates the lower esophageal sphincter. This is a functional sphincter. This is the normal upper GI endoscopic view of the esophagus, and it is showing the transition from the pale pink to thin squamous mucosa of the esophagus to the darker color pink columnar mucosa of the stomach at the gastroesophageal junction, that is marked by this black arrowhead. And the lower esophageal sphincter is a physiological sphincter that is maintained by its normal muscle tone, and when food arrives in there and the lower esophagus is distended, it relaxes. This lower esophageal sphincter relaxes, and restrictive relaxation of the proximal stomach through a vasovagal reflexes with release of vasoactive intestinal peptides from postganglionic peptidergic vagal nerve fibers. A loss of this normal tone allows reflux of acidic contents of the stomach into the lower esophagus that produces the pathology that results in heartburn. An abnormality in the esophageal sphincter can also produce difficulty in swallowing. This difficulty in swallowing is termed as dysphagia. While lesion in the esophageal mucosa may cause pain in swallowing, and pain on swallowing is termed as odynophagia. So remember these two terms, dysphagia and odynophagia. The esophagus is composed of mucosa, submucosa, muscularis and serosa or adventitia. The mucosa is composed of non-keratinizing squamous epithelium that is overlying the lamina propria, and except at the lower end of the esophagus for a distance of about 0.5 to 1.5 centimeter. The basal layer of the epithelium shows some melanocyte, argyrophilic cells and Langerhans cells. The lower 1.5 or 0.5 to 1.5 centimeter of the esophagus shows mucin secreting columnar epithelium that is termed as junctional mucosa. Submucosa is composed of loose connective tissue in which the lymphocyte, plasma cells and eosinophil and mast cells are sprinkled. The mucus producing glands are scattered throughout the submucosa. The muscularis propria is composed of two layers of smooth muscle, the inner circular and outer longitudinal layer. The proximal part of the esophagus contains skeletal muscle fiber from cricopharyngeus muscle. The parasympathetic nerve supply of the vagus is in the form of extrinsic and intrinsic plexus. The outer covering of the esophagus is termed as adventitia. Serosa is present only in the intra-abdominal part of the esophagus, while elsewhere it is covered by the periesophageal adventitial tissue. This photomicrograph is the histological picture of the normal esophagus, that is showing that this is lined by non-keratinizing squamous epithelium on the left, and underlying there is a submucosa in which the lymphoid tissue and submucosal mucus glands are also present. The lymphoid tissue is surrounding a duct in this picture, and on the right there are the muscularis. Predominantly the voluntarily striated muscles initiate swelling, and they are present in the upper esophagus, and they merges and changes to involuntary smooth muscle distally in the lower esophagus. This provides propulsive peristalsis of the food and liquid boluses into the stomach. The disorders of the esophagus can be classified as congenital and acquired lesions. The congenital lesions of the esophagus are agenesis, that is incompatible with life, while the other lesion are congenital stenosis, atresia, fistulae formation, and duplication of the esophagus. Again, the acquired lesions can be divided into two categories: the benign lesions and malignant one. The benign lesions, the summary of the benign lesion is depicted in this picture, and they consist of obstruction of the esophagus, achalasia, esophagitis and related disorders, lacerations, chemical and infectious esophagitis, reflux esophagitis, eosinophilic esophagitis, esophageal varices, Barrett's esophagus, and the malignant lesions are adenocarcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma of the esophagus. The tumor of the esophagus can be divided into benign and malignant categories. The commonest benign tumor is the leiomyoma of the esophagus, while the malignant tumors of the esophagus are the 8th most common cancer in the United States. The common category or common malignant tumors of the esophagus are adenocarcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma. These comprise most of the esophageal carcinomas, while uncommon tumors are unusual form of adenocarcinoma, undifferentiated carcinoma, neuroendocrine carcinomas, melanoma, lymphoma, and sarcoma. The adenocarcinoma of the esophagus is rising, especially in the advanced world. It is on the rise, and it arises in the background of Barrett's esophagus and long-standing gastroesophageal reflux disease. So, all the factors that are involved in the causation of gastroesophageal reflux disease are associated with increased frequency of the esophageal adenocarcinoma. These are alcohol, tobacco, obesity, use of chocolate, and intake of fatty foods, estrogen therapy, and exposure to radiation. This exposure to radiation may lead to the development of esophageal carcinoma 2 to 20 years later. Also, it may arise in the background of Barrett's esophagus, while the esophageal carcinoma are decreased, or their incidence is decreased when people take diet rich in fresh fruits and vegetable, and in the background of H. pylori infection. This H. pylori infection, it induces gastric atrophy, and due to gastric atrophy there is decreased secretion of the gastric acid that decreases the damage to the esophageal mucosa. Males are more prone to this esophageal adenocarcinoma, and it is 7 times more common in males, and especially it is common in Caucasians. Before 1970, only 5% of the tumor from the esophagus were adenocarcinoma, but now this is so common that about 50% of all esophageal cancer in the United States are adenocarcinoma. There is a geographical variation in the incidence of esophageal adenocarcinoma. The areas with high incidence are marked with these red dots. These are Canada, United States, United Kingdom, Netherlands, Australia, and Brazil. While there are some areas which due to some dietary habits and due to environmental influences, they have got decreased incidence of this esophageal adenocarcinoma. These are Ecuador, Thailand, Korea, and Japan. This condition has been increased markedly since 1970, and as we have seen earlier, now more than 50% of the tumor are of esophageal tumor are of adenocarcinoma variety. There is especially 7-time increase in the incidence of this tumor in the last 30 years in the United States. Various genetic changes have been described and attributed to the pathogenesis of the adenocarcinoma of the esophagus. The early stage changes are the abnormalities in the chromosome and mutation of the tumor suppressor gene TP53 and CDKN2A. CDKN2A is a gene that encodes two tumor suppressor protein P15 and P19 ARF. Both allelic loss and hypermethylation induced epigenetic silences have been described for esophageal adenocarcinoma. As the disease progresses, there are some Hitchhiker or passenger mutations, and these are the amplification of several oncogenes including EGFR, ERB2, MET, cyclin D1 and cyclin E gene. The adenocarcinoma of the esophagus affect the distal third of the esophagus. The lesions are flat, ulcerated, polypoidal or fungating in gross appearance. They may invade the adjacent gastric cardia, and initially they appear as a flat or raised patches in the otherwise intact mucosa. Later they grow into the large masses of 5 cm or more in the diameter. They infiltrate diffusely or ulcerate and invade deeper tissue. This gross picture of the esophagus is exhibiting a mass that is protruding into the lumen. This grayish brown mass is protruding into the lumen, and it is also showing some hemorrhagic areas within it. This is the gross picture of the esophagus with the adjacent gastroesophageal junction. In the upper part of the esophagus, this whitish color mucosa is showing the normal esophagus, while the tan colored mucosa is exhibiting Barrett's esophagus. So usually these tumors, they arise in the background of the Barrett's esophagus. So near the gastroesophageal junction, there is a tumor, and this tumor is in the background of the Barrett's esophagus, and it is darker, slightly erythematous, and it is also extending into the gastroesophageal junction, and the surface is ulcerating. This is another gross photograph of the esophagus, the lower end of the esophagus with adjacent gastroesophageal junction. The upper area that is whitish in color is the normal, and in the lower part of the esophagus there is an exophytic and fungating ulcerated mass that is present in the background of the tan colored mucosa, that is the Barrett's mucosa or Barrett's esophagus. This was subsequently proven histologically as adenocarcinoma. The adenocarcinoma of the esophagus typically produce mucin, as is evident in this picture, and form glands, often with intestinal type of the morphology. Less frequently, these tumors are composed of diffusely infiltrative signet ring cells, and these are similar to the diffuse gastric cancers. Rarely, small poorly differentiated cells are also seen, and these are similar to the small cell carcinoma of the lung. The Barrett's esophagus is frequently present adjacent to a tumor. The photomicrograph is showing the crowding of the gland. They are very closely packed, and they are showing pleomorphism and other features of anaplasia. The adenocarcinoma of the esophagus may be diagnosed incidentally during the evaluation of the gastroesophageal reflux disease or surveillance of Barrett's esophagus. The patient is typically a white obese man with history of gastroesophageal reflux disease who may present with pain or difficulty in swallowing, progressive weight loss, hematemesis, chest pain, or vomiting. At the time of presentation, tumor may already spread to the submucosal lymphatic vessels. The tumors that are limited to the mucosa or submucosa have got a good prognosis, and 5-year survival is 80%, while if the tumor has invaded the lymphatics, it drastically comes down to less than 25%. The treatment for early invasive tumors that are in T1 stage is endoscopic mucosal resection, and the tumor that invading the submucosa and at the T2 level, the primary esophagectomy is performed. Advanced disease can be treated by neoadjuvant chemotherapy and radiation treatment, followed by surgical resection in patients who have a good clinical response. This is this computed tomography scan with contrast enhancement, and it is showing a mass. This mass is represented by this red dot, and this mass is surrounding the central esophageal lumen, and it is extending into the upper stomach. These adenocarcinoma of the esophagus, they arise in the background of gastroesophageal reflux disease or Barrett's esophagus. So this endoscopic picture is showing the Barrett's esophagus that is marked by irregularly reddish mucosa and a pale polypoid exophytic mass that is pointed by this black arrow, and this mass is extending into the esophageal lumen that later proved as adenocarcinoma on histologic evaluation. The other common variety of the esophageal tumor is squamous cell carcinoma. These are also a common tumor in male, and male are about 4 times more commonly affected than females. It is a disease of old age, and the patients are usually more than 45 years of age. It is more common in rural and low income populations. The other risk factors for the squamous cell carcinoma of the esophagus are alcohol and tobacco that have got synergistic effect, poverty, Plummer-Vinson syndrome, prior cystic esophageal injury, achalasia, use of hot beverage, and previous radiation that may occur from 2 to 20 years after the radiation. The squamous cell carcinoma of the esophagus is common or high prevalence area of the squamous cell carcinoma of the esophagus are United States of America, Brazil, South Africa, Iran, China, and Kenya. In Kenya, it is associated with mursik, that is the traditional fermented milk of Kenya, and it contains carcinogen acetaldehyde. The other areas of the high prevalence are associated with regular ingestion of very hot tea and also other contributing factor. In USA especially, it is common in African American, and it is 8 times more common in them, and the associated reasons are poorly understood. It is more common in urban areas of the US, while in other populations it is common in rural populations. In the subcontinent, it has been attributed with the use of spicy food. As far as the pathology of squamous cell carcinoma is concerned, the two major contributing factors are alcohol and tobacco use. Both these factors have got synergistic effect on the development of this cancer or carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma. But the squamous cell carcinoma is also common in the areas where this alcohol and tobacco is not used so much. In that areas, the other factors are responsible. These are the polycyclic hydrocarbons, nitrosamine, fungus contaminated food, and human papillomavirus that resides in the human epithelial cells, and infection of this virus also contribute in the development of the squamous cell carcinoma of the esophagus. All these factors lead to some genetic changes, and the important genetic changes are amplification of gene SOX2. This SOX2 is a transcription factor, and it is involved in stem cell self-renewal. There is overexpression of cyclin D1, that is a regulator of the cell cycle, and there are loss of function mutations in T53 CDH1 that encodes E-cadherin, and it is responsible for metastasis, and Notch1 mutation. Tylosis is a rare autosomal dominant disorder in which there is a mutation in the TEC, that is tylosis with esophageal cancer gene. It is a tumor suppressor gene that is located on chromosome 17q. This genetic mutation will result in hyperkeratosis of the palm and soles, and a high rate of the esophageal squamous cell carcinoma, that is about 40 to 50% by the age of 70. The squamous cell carcinoma arises in the middle third of the esophagus, and it arises or begins as in situ lesion, that is the result of squamous dysplasia. Grossly, the early lesion starts as a small grey-white and plaque-like thickening, and later they develop as polypoidal or exophytic masses that protrude into the lumen and obstruct the lumen and result in clinical symptoms. They invade locally as well as they metastasize also. They invade the respiratory tree and result in frequent pneumonia, and they may invade aorta and result in massive bleeding, and they can also infiltrate into mediastinum and pericardium and result in mediastinitis and pericardial symptoms. They are of moderate to well differentiated grades, and there are many histologic variants of this squamous cell carcinoma. These are varicose squamous cell carcinoma, spindle cell carcinoma, and basaloid squamous cell carcinoma. Whatever the histology of the tumor, the symptomatic tumors are generally large and invasive at the time of diagnosis. Esophagus has got a rich lymphatic network, and this rich lymphatic network is responsible for its circumferential and longitudinal spread. Intramural satellite tumor nodules may be present several centimeters away from the principal mass. The lymphatics for each third of the esophagus is different. The upper third of the esophagus drains into the cervical lymph node, and the middle third drains into mediastinal, paratracheal, tracheobronchial nodes, and the lower thirds drain into celiac and gastric lymph node. Hence, the lymphatic spread of this tumor will follow the lymphatic drainage of the esophagus. This picture is showing the occurrence, site of occurrence of the esophagus, the squamous cell carcinoma and adenocarcinoma. The squamous cell carcinoma arises from the middle third of the esophagus in most of the cases, while the lower third is affected in 1/3 cases, and 1/5 of the cases affect the upper third of the esophagus, while the adenocarcinoma, which accounts for 10% in the low income countries, and it is rising, and it comprises about 50% of the tumor in high income countries. It affects usually the lower third of the esophagus. This illustration is showing the gross appearance, morphological form of the squamous cell carcinoma of the esophagus. There are three patterns. One is the polypoid fungating type, that is the most common type, and it appears as a cauliflower-like friable mass that protrudes into the lumen. The second most common type is the ulcerating type, and it looks grossly as a necrotic ulcer with everted edges. The diffuse infiltrating type appears as an annular stenosing narrowing of the lumen due to infiltration into the wall of the esophagus. This is the gross picture of the esophageal carcinoma. In this gross picture, there is a fungating mass that is present in the middle of the esophagus, where about more than 50% of the cases of this squamous cell carcinoma arise. This is the gross picture of the esophagus that is showing the squamous cell carcinoma affecting the middle zone of the esophagus, middle third of the esophagus, and morphologically this lesion is reddish, ulcerated and exophytic, that is present on mucosal surface. The distensibility of the esophagus improves the mass effect of the esophagus squamous cell carcinoma, and symptoms are delayed. So at the time of presentation, there is advanced tumor. This is another gross picture of the squamous cell carcinoma of the esophagus. This large ulcerated mass is present in the squamous mucosa, and below it the squamous mucosa is normal, and it is communicating with the stomach. This photomicrograph is showing the histopathological features of squamous cell carcinoma of the esophagus. It is composed of nests of malignant cells that show squamous differentiation with features of anaplasia. If squamous pearls are formed and present, that is labeled as well differentiated squamous cell carcinoma, and some tumors may exhibit spindle cell populations. This is another photomicrograph of squamous cell carcinoma that is on low power view, and there is a small remnant of normal squamous esophageal mucosa that is marked by black arrow, and it is merging into abnormally thick squamous cell carcinoma. The solid nest of neoplastic cells that are marked by the white arrow are infiltrating down through the submucosa. The squamous cell carcinoma onset insidiously. The symptoms of the squamous cell carcinoma, one is the dysphagia, and when the patient presents with dysphagia, the disease is already in inoperable stage. 50% of the patient presents with odynophagia, that is painful swallowing. When there is persistent pain, it means the lesion has extended to the mediastinum or to the spinal nerves. The patient may present with obstruction at the time of presentation, and he may have unknowingly adjusted to progressive esophageal obstruction by altering their diet from solid to liquid food. Hoarseness of the voice is due to compression of recurrent laryngeal nerve, and cough may result due to development of tracheoesophageal fistula. The impaired nutrition and tumor cachexia will result in weight loss and debilitation. The tumor ulceration will result in hemorrhage and sepsis. Iron deficiency symptoms may also present, and if there is tracheoesophageal fistula that is caused by the extension of the tumor into the trachea, it will result in aspiration of the food. So these are the symptoms of the squamous cell carcinoma. The early detection is by the upper gastrointestinal endoscopy, and prognosis is good if this lesion is superficial, while if it is advanced, the 5-year survival rate is only 20%, which was 75% for the superficial lesion. The markers of poor prognosis are advanced tumor stage, late age of the patient, male gender, and black race. This is the endoscopic view of squamous cell carcinoma. This is showing an ulcerated mid-esophageal squamous cell carcinoma causing luminal stenosis. The other uncommon tumors of the esophagus are mucoepidermoid carcinoma, in which the tumor characteristics of squamous cell, as well as mucus secreting carcinomas. The malignant melanoma derived from the melanoblast in the epithelium of the esophagus. The small cell carcinoma arises from the argyrophil cells in the basal layer of the epithelium. The undifferentiated carcinoma is an anaplastic carcinoma which cannot be classified into any recognizable type of the carcinoma. Carcinosarcoma is a tumor that consists of malignant epithelial as well as sarcomatous component. There are secondary tumors in the esophagus also, and they rarely occur, and examples are the secondaries from breast, kidney, and adrenals. This was the scenario we discussed earlier in the video. A 56-year-old man presented to the clinic with decreased ability to swallow solid food, even with extensive chewing. And after taking complete history, he has been shown that he avoided large meal and has lost nearly 30 pounds over the last 6 months. He has also smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day for 20 years and has a history of heavy alcohol use. He complained of pain in his throat when swallowing and has been coughing up a small amount of blood on occasion. On physical examination, you notice both cervical lymphadenopathy and hepatomegaly, as well as hoarseness of the voice when the patient responds to your question. So you order an endoscopy with biopsy to establish your suspected diagnosis. So now you can predict what is the result of that, what is the probable result of that biopsy, and that is